Venus and star blessings, everybody. I want to talk about the new moon in Sagittarius. It's quite an important new moon. It's the last new moon for 2023. So it's really, it's the energy that's going to step us into 2024, although the new year really begins 20th of March, which is when the 21st of March rather, which is when the sun is at 0 degrees of Aries. In any case, we are stepping into January of 2024 very, very soon. So this is quite an important energy, even just for that reason alone. Before I unpack some of the things that I personally have been reflecting on and considering, I just want to remind you all that I have been teaching classes, and they started a couple of months ago. And starting in January of next year, we are stepping into what I'm calling the second block. These classes will be going on for a few years, actually, because we've started right at the absolute fundamental core beginning of the elements, the quadruplicities, the archetypes, and so on and so forth. And anyway, next year in January, we go into a field that's a little bit more advanced. So if you felt that the first 10-week block was too basic for you, which I can tell you now, it wouldn't have been. You would have learned a lot of things, and that's evident from the people that did join, who some of them have been practicing or studying astrology for many, many years and found the first week actually incredibly valuable. I'm using a lot of chart examples as well for every single class. And in my personal study of astrology over many, many years, I have found that by looking at chart after chart after chart after chart is one of the best ways to learn, because it's called observation correlation. Anyway, the new course or new second week block starts in January. If you're interested, let me know. Also, I want to remind people, if you do like my videos, don't forget to hit the, what's it called? Super thanks button or something like that. Just helps me to survive, essentially. So let's jump into this new moon. I'm going to bring in a little bit of information about some feminine deities, asteroids. One of them is from an Egyptian lineage, which I think is really crucial at the moment in this new moon as well. And also from the Greek Roman lineage, if you like, as well, which are the asteroids are Pallas, Athena, and Ceres, because they too are very strong in this new moon chart. And there is one fixed star that I would like to focus on as well, which is actually conjunct this new moon. So I think that's very, very important. And before I start with all of that, I just want to also say, and you can view this however you wish, it's entirely up to you, but I would like to remind people that a few days ago or a week ago or somewhere around there, I did a video on Venus in Scorpio. And in that video, I spoke about the royal star Antares, which was lining up with Mars in the fixed Babylonian zodiac. That star, without going into all the details, if you didn't watch that video, watch it if you want the full run of it. But just a quick reminder, that star corresponds to war, okay, in a nutshell. And I just want to say it's pretty uncanny and certainly not coincidental that when that alignment occurred, it's just been days later where there has been a collective body come together, positions of power, in order to discuss the matter of ceasefire. And most, if not all countries agreed to, yes, ceasefire. And it was the only one that didn't was the US Biden administration. So I just want to say that I feel that decision very much reflects that star, Antares, lighting up with Mars. Okay, now Mars is a very significant part of this story, has been right from the beginning, still is, and will be for some time to come, because as I've mentioned on numerous occasions, Mars is invisible, okay? And when Mars is invisible, there are a lot of things going on that are very difficult for us to see, to understand what is actually going on. There are hidden agendas at play, very simply put. I'm going to try not to focus too much on the Middle Eastern issue, because it's been just a very painful thing to process for me personally. And just very simply put, I'm pro-humanity, period, and I'm pro-life, period. And I was like this during the COVID situation as well. So if, for those of you that follow me, you would understand where I'm coming from with regards to the chaos and the crisis that is occurring. It's really about pro-life, simple as that. In whichever aspect or whichever direction we look at, it is about pro-life, period, right? I just want to say that, that's all. Okay, so let me just bring up a chart for the new moon, and we can start exploring that. So there it is there, December the 13th for Southern Hemisphere Melbourne, which is my current location, and that will be on the 12th of December for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. Okay, so still, either way, it hasn't actually happened yet. We are just very close to it. Tomorrow morning, basically. So the new moon is at 20 degrees of Sagittarius, and you can see Mars is pretty close still, actually, to the new moon, meaning that Mars has been in this picture for the last couple of months, because Mars, tracked Scorpio, it's tracking Sagittarius. We've had, Scorpio moons, we've had the Gemini full moon a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty much, he's always been there kind of thing, but he is invisible. Okay, that's the important thing to remember. Mars, of course, is still conjunct Ceres. Okay, Ceres is the Earth Mother, otherwise known as Demeter in the Greek name, and Ceres corresponds to loss and grief, and there is tremendous of loss and grief going on the Earth, period. Doesn't matter which way you want to perceive it, with our own position, our own ideologies, our own beliefs, our own religious righteousness position, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Fact is, there is loss and grief going on, period, right? That's the job of Ceres, if you like. We have Venus in Scorpio still conjunct Pallas Athena very, very closely. That's very, very important in this new moon chart, because Venus is a morning star, which means she is a war goddess. Pallas Athena is her primary deity. As a morning star, Venus has specific deities. As an evening star, she has specific deities. As a morning star, her primary deity is Pallas Athena. Now, this is the asteroid Pallas Athena, but she happens to be conjunct Venus. In other words, these energies speak to the current events, period. Whichever way you want to look at it, it's simply as above, so below. The new moon is the primary aspect really is a square to Neptune. That is a difficult aspect. Again, whichever way you want to look at it, it is a difficult aspect in this third dimensional physical reality. There are higher expressions of this and higher manifestations, which all of us can strive towards with some awareness, with some consciousness, with some clear critical thinking, with some objectivity, and so forth, right? I'll get to that in a minute. Mercury is stationing retrograde. In a couple of hours' time after this new moon, Mercury will go retrograde. That's highly significant as well. Neptune recently stationed direct. Okay, so that's part of this picture as well, because Neptune is squaring the new moon in a direct motion. Mars is actually trine Chiron. And that's also very important as well from the point of view of this new moon cycle and propelling us forward into 2024. I'll come back to each in a moment. There is also a quincunx from the new moon to Uranus. That's also very significant. That's another pattern of energy that speaks or feeds into this new moon. There is a fixed star called Sabik, S-A-B-I-K, conjunct this new moon. That's highly significant as well. The fixed star Sabik in the tropical zodiac sits at 18 degrees of Sagittarius. In the Babylonian zodiac, it's 23 of Scorpio. So in the tropical zodiac, relative to what we are looking at today, this is the tropical zodiac, the fixed star aligns with this new moon. I believe it is a powerful star. It's not a royal star, but it carries a lot of weight. That particular star basically speaks to, I'll try and just keep it very, very simple. There's two very distinct sides to this star, if you like. Not that I like to split things up, but there are two very distinct themes that can be born out of the energy of this star. And they are at the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. So at the highest, actually, sorry, before I go there, let me just think. Just one other thing. With Mercury stationing retrograde, this is where the Egyptian deity comes in. So there is an Egyptian goddess called Sekhmet, right? And that spelling is S-E-K-H-M-E-T. Just pop me up there and expand myself a little bit. She's an Egyptian deity or deity, very, very powerful. She's a solar deity. So she's very strongly linked to the morning star, in other words. Okay, she was basically another war goddess who pretty much tried to annihilate humanity. Okay, just to put it very, very simply. I'll read you this. Her name means she who is powerful, or the one who loves Mat, as in the goddess Mat, M-A-A-T, was the goddess of the hot desert sun, plague, chaos, war, and healing. Thank God she has the element of healing associated with her as well. But she is a goddess of war, primarily, first and foremost. She was created from the fire of the sun god Ra's eye, R-A, the sun god Ra, created from his eye when he looked upon earth. This is what is said in the old teachings of the history or mythology of this particular Egyptian goddess. Ra created her as a weapon to destroy humans for their disobedience to him and for not living in accordance with the principles of Mat, goddess Mat, who is a goddess that corresponds to justice, amongst many other things. Sometimes she is seen as the daughter of Geb, G-E-B, earth, in other words, and Nut, N-U-T, the sky. So she corresponds to both earth and sky. Sekhmet was depicted with the body of a woman with a lion's head. Now, how much does that correspond to the Leo Venus morning star, who is utterly active at present and will be until June of 2024? Sekhmet was depicted with the, sorry, I've already read that. She was seen as the protector of the pharaohs and led them in warfare. When she was in a calmer state, she would take the form of the household cat goddess Basset. She's just come back into my consciousness, this goddess, just randomly in the last sort of couple of weeks. And I've been thinking about her a lot because I'm very connected to the goddess Basset because I have this complete and utter soul connection with cats, and I have had that since I was born. I've got photos of myself of when I was 2-3 years old, basically rolling in the ground with little baby kittens and just holding them like this, like they were my babies. True story. Sekhmet was a terrifying goddess. However, for her friends, she would avert plague and cure disease. She was the patron of physicians and healers. The ancient Egyptians believed that Sekhmet had a cure for every problem. In order to stay on her good side, they offered her food and drink, played her music, and burned incense. They would whisper their prayers into the ears of a cat. And you know what's ironic about that? When I read that, I thought, wow, every single night when I'm laying there going to sleep, because I sleep with my cat, she sleeps on my heart every night. And I whisper things into her ear all the time. And I've been doing that ever since I've had this gorgeous Coco Queen. Just amazing synchronicities. Whisper prayers into the ears of the cat. Sorry, let me just start that again. They would whisper their prayers into the ears of a cat, mummies, and offer them to Sekhmet. They believed that this was a direct connection to the deities. Their prayers would be answered. So that's, in a nutshell, the themes that correspond to the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet. Now, Sekhmet at the moment is, ironically, conjunct Mercury, just as Mercury stations retrograde. So, very, very simply put, I see that as an energy pattern contained with this new moon from the point of view of what's happening in the Middle East specifically, as this goddess speaking directly, Mercury speaking, logos, word, speech, communication, right? And Mercury is going retrograde, which means there are processes of rethinking a lot of different things. Mercury is going to go back into Sagittarius, right? Go over the galactic center, go as far back as 22 degrees of Sag. So the rethinking process for us personally and the collective influence has the Capricorn Sagittarius archetypal influence in terms of what those archetypes speak to, which I'm sure most of you know, so I don't need to unpack that. But let's remember one very simple thing. Sagittarius and Capricorn are of the later signs in the wheel, and so therefore they correspond to social structures and themes, okay? Also ideological beliefs and so forth. But the goddess Sekhmet, who is a war goddess, being conjunct stationary retrograde Mercury during the new moon, indicates to me there will be a lot of reconsiderations around what is happening in the Middle East, in whichever way that comes. There will be some process that takes place there, because Sekhmet is a goddess of war, okay? Plain and simple. And she is forming a conjunction to Mercury in a new moon cycle when we still have Venus morning star active, which is another war goddess. So I think the symbolism is literal, absolutely literal. I don't even need to unpack it any further. Now, from the point of view of, I'll go back to the fixed star that is conjunct the new moon. As I said, it's not a royal star, but I believe it's still a very powerful one. And as I was saying before, it has two very opposing, if you like, or different levels of manifestation. And I really believe through observation and through my own evolutionary experience in this lifetime that the level of how energies open up for us, meaning transits, meaning stars, meaning the whole cosmos, everything, how things relate to us or how things open up for us, or how we see things, or what we believe, is always based on our own soul's orientation and where we are in our evolutionary process. And that is evident all around in the entire collective human family. That's why everyone, to some extent, has very different beliefs or perspectives or positions or preferences and the like. It's as simple as that. So if for those this energy comes and inspires and speaks from a more transcended level, the transcended level of this fixed star, Sabik, speaks to the shaman, which I found that to be just really, really, really inspiring, really uplifting. It just gave me a sense of hope. Now, what do we mean by shaman? Everyone knows what a shaman is, I think, but in the context of this, the energy of this star, from that point of view, from it flourishing the shaman aspects, and because Sag is an archetype that corresponds to a shaman, because Sagittarius is the archetype that opens in all of us the desire to seek meaning, right? Pure and simple. There are many layers to Sagittarius, but if you want to point it to just a couple of words, it is exactly that. It's the search for meaning. So here we have a new moon pointing us to, with the arrow Sag, pointing us to the search for meaning in the chaos. And we have a fixed star that also correlates to shaman, meaning, healing, and seeing beyond the appearances and seeing through with transcendent eyes, if you like. That's the most positive level of this fixed star. So in other words, from our own personal position, in wrapping up this entire year and having our own personal reflective process about what this year has meant for each of us, how we have grown, what has been challenging for us, what has been painful, what have we learned, where have we evolved, where were we able to face our own personal fears or unconscious material that's been activated, all the different things, our relationships, how we've related to people, what we've shared, what we've received, what we've given. It is a process of reflecting on all of that, right? So that we can take with us into a new moon a bigger picture perspective, Sagittarius, with the search for a new meaning, if you like, into our future moving forward. We must find that in our hearts somewhere in order to be able to move forward. And Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's a sign that sits later in the wheel, as I said, so it corresponds to humanity in some kind of way. It also corresponds to our very own personal, ideals and ideologies and beliefs and so forth, right? The other level of the fixed star, that the darker side, is not as pleasant. It corresponds to lost energy, perverted morals, and success in evil deeds. I don't want to point my finger, but for me personally, I know already what that is speaking to. So let's just say, to remain objective and to not be personal, I will just say that this energy of this star in the hands of any soul that is unevolved, unconscious, has evil intent, well, this energy is going to manifest in those ways. Pure and simple. Read it how you like. Read my my comment, how you like, it doesn't matter. I'm just pointing to the facts of what's happening in the sky, pure and simple. The square to Neptune, the new moon forming a square to Neptune, as I said at the beginning, is a difficult passage, because Neptune is one of the trickiest planets, as I've said numerous times. Out of all the planets, it is the trickiest energy because it creates illusion, disillusionment, disappointment, confusion, deception, unclear, looking through a fog, trying to figure out what is real, what isn't real, what's truthful, what isn't truthful. Have I been deceived? Have I been tricked? Is my own perception distorted? These are all the things that Neptune can bring up in our own psyche, if you like. So it's difficult, right? It is going to speak to all those things, and also a lot of things actually dissolving. And what's going to be dissolving? I guess we could say that part of the dissolving process is the ideologies that each of us carry in our own way. An ideology, perhaps, that is more akin to perceiving something, reality, in a way that is exclusive, not inclusive. So there is a process of matters dissolving around those sorts of themes in our own mind, in our own consciousness, in our psyche, and in the collective unconscious and conscious as well. It is a process of surrendering as well. Neptune always asks us to surrender. The difficult thing about surrendering to Neptune is you are surrendering to what your physical eyes cannot see. So it is literally like standing on a mountaintop. It's pitch black dark. When you're looking ahead, you cannot see anything. It's the abyss, hence the darkness. And there's a voice there, and it asks you, okay, you need to take that step into off this mountain, off this cliff, off this ledge or edge, and just dive into that. How many souls do you think would feel comfortable in doing that? Very, 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 very few, if any at all. Thus, why Neptune is very, very difficult. In this picture, that's kind of what it's asking us to do. It's asking us to surrender to a bigger picture, Sagittarius, that at this present moment we cannot see. What we can see is the suffering, the anguish, the anger, the confusion, the violence, the conflict, so on and so forth. And what that is activating within each of us, and how that's being interpreted, and how that's influencing our day-to-day life, how that's influencing how we are relating to people, so on and so forth. So this new moon kind of says, stop, step into an energy that takes you into the bigger picture, Sagittarius, surrender to it, Neptune, and allow the dissolving of whatever you've held in your ideological belief system and consciousness to disappear, evaporate, so that a new sense of meaning can be born into your consciousness, Sagittarius. New visions, Sagittarius. The next component that highlights the same message but in a different way is the inconjunct from transiting Uranus to the new moon. Taurus to Sagittarius is a quincunx or inconjunct. Those two words mean the same thing. It's an aspect. It's 150 degrees, basically. And in conjunct has a lot of different meanings, and it depends, you know, which lens you want to look through. But I want to speak to two lenses. One from the point of view of what a quincunx means via transits, and then the next level I want to speak to is from an evolutionary astrological level. So when you see a transit of two planets being in conjunct each other, typically what that brings up is the changing of our mind about something and dropping it, letting it go, moving on from it. Okay, what are we dropping? What are we letting go? What are we moving on from? Some sort of ideological position that we've maintained. Very simple. The evolutionary perspective would be to say that we all hold our own beliefs, Sagittarius. They stem from this lifetime, the conditioning that we have integrated this lifetime, and also the conditioning in our psychic imprints from every other lifetime, you could say. Now, I'm not saying this new moon and this aspect is going to wipe all that out, but it is suggesting to us that we must step into this portal, this energy, from that level in some kind of way. So the invitation then becomes, what is it about our belief system that needs to be deconditioned, broken down in some kind of way, so that we can open ourselves up and evolve to a bigger meaning, a bigger perspective. Meaning, bigger perspective is Sagittarius. Deconditioning is Uranus. Saturn is our conditioned state, and Uranus is how we break out of those conditions. And Uranus is in Taurus, so it's very, very personal. It's about our whole value system, you know, that maybe we've maintained our entire life. There is some invitation here to consider some of those values that we have thought were the only right way to, the only right values, or the only right beliefs, Sagittarius. There is something there that's being asked of us to reconsider here, right? Because as I said, the in conjunction in a transit speaks to changing our mind and moving away from something. And because of the archetypes involved, Taurus, Sag, it's on one hand, it's very personal because it's Taurus, our own personal values. And also Sagittarius, our belief systems. Okay, so let me think. You know what? That's actually pretty much it, really. Those are the key themes. Naturally, they will feel and appear differently for all of us because we are all completely unique. But in any case, generally speaking, a lot of those themes would apply to most of us in some kind of way anyway. And also, you know, as I said, it is the last new moon of 2023, and it's a really important window to let go of our fantasies and delusions on, you know, the things that we may have held as being absolute truth and gospel, Sagittarius. We're going to be, we're going to experience something around that. And if we can do it with some awareness and objectivity, you know, we can literally set, because the new moon is always about setting intentions, right? We can literally try and, you know, set some intentions there to break away from some beliefs and some perspectives and things that have only really spoken to keeping a narrative or an energy alive that only divides. I really believe that everything that is happening is, it's not a coincidence. It all has meaning. It all serves a much higher reason. And there's a lot of, within those levels, there's so much that in our human form we couldn't possibly understand or know or see. God works in mysterious ways. We cannot know God's mind. But I do believe that whatever appears at any point in our life, whether it's in our own personal life or whether it's speaking to a bigger picture externally, things that are going on a collective level, it is always an opportunity for us to grow and to evolve. I believe that God tests us all the time. That's part of our evolutionary process and journey. That's why we are here, to grow. Everything that appears, I believe, fundamentally at the most highest level, is to give us an opportunity to either return back to love or to continue to project whatever it is we are projecting. There's always a choice. There is always a choice. So we have a choice of returning to love or staying unconscious, if I can just put it in those ways. Actually, I forgot to mention Mars trine Chiron. And it's also trine the North Node, really. It's a very wide trine, but Mars is actually approaching towards the trine to the North Node. That'll get there in the next week or so, something like that. Well, Chiron is obviously typically referred to as the wounded healer. I don't want to continuously go into the mythology of Chiron, but I just do want to say this. What most people are not aware of is that one of the things about Chiron is the fear of rejection. Basically because his parents abandoned him at birth. Okay, that was the first wound that Chiron actually endured, first wound. So what's Mars trine Chiron then speaking to? Well, it is a window of helping us actually if Mars is assisting or animating or activating or energizing within us, pushing with force Mars, our ideological self-righteous beliefs, Sagittarius, then the trine to Chiron is definitely an integrative healing portal to help us through that process and remember that well, I guess remember that Mars and anger about any position we may hold, no matter how right we think we are, only just creates more division, right? And so we can integrate with this Chiron energy to heal inside our own self what may be fragmented, broken, challenging to understand, challenging to understand another person's experience of their reality, and so on and so forth. So because a trine aspect is an integrative aspect which comes through without resistance, right? So there's a flow of Mars and Chiron. Like Chiron is kind of calling to Mars, if you like, and saying, okay, let's not project that fire and anger and push everyone into a particular corner or into a particular side. Let's try and understand even just our own position, where we are coming from, but also hold that space for understanding other people's positions as well. And let's try and bring healing in both those spaces, even though both those spaces might come from the complete opposite directions. I feel that that's what this Mars trine Chiron is perhaps speaking to. And this will be going on for some time because it hasn't really even gotten there yet. But it's within range now, as you could say, during this new moon. Yeah, okay, I'm going to leave it there and allow you all to reflect on what I've shared. Hopefully it's been useful, interesting. As I said, reach out if you want to study a 10-week block with me, which is more advanced level astrology. And also if you're interested in any kind of reading. And I'm not sure if I'm going to see you guys before the year is out. I probably will, actually, because yeah, I will see you guys one more time before the year is out. So I'm sending you all much love and much peace. And I want to say this, I want to share this biblical quote. And even if you're not Christian or you're not religious or whatever, it doesn't matter. There's so much wisdom in the ancient scriptures. We don't have to be religious to connect to wisdom. And the quote is, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do." Now, I've paraphrased that ever so slightly, but I feel that we must adopt that position so that we can return to love. See you soon.